So if people would like to introduce themselves in the chat area and remain muted, if we have time, we might ask for some questions from the floor. But having seen Yoseph's slides, I think we'll probably have plenty to do. Now, just to remind people that on the following Friday to the webinar, so that's next Friday, Yoseph will come along and carry on the discussion about his topic. So we'll send more details out about that. So if you're not members of the Telegram group, we'll give you details of that towards the end. But I'm going to stop talking now and just work in the background and pass over to Yoseph, who's going to introduce himself and do his presentation. Okay, over to you, Yoseph.
Greetings all, Yoseph Feleke here. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Gary, Steve, the English Connectors, and the British Council for this great opportunity. Today, let's explore the dynamic impact of intercultural communication in the modern classroom. And as the PhD candidate in ALT and 19 years of teaching experience, I have witnessed the transformative impact of embracing cultural diversity. And also as the president of the Ethiopian English Language Professionals Association and a part-time lecturer at the Sub-Saharan University, I am very much eager to share insights on how intercultural communication enhances our educational landscape. So in a few minutes, we're gonna delve into the detailed presentation. But before that, can I have a warming up session with all of you? It's a very simple activity which can take 2 to 3 minutes. And the title of the warming up session is Cultural Connections Speed Round. So this is directly related to today's presentation. So I have quite a few instructions that you're going to do. And I want you to put your responses in the chat box. I'll try to read some responses there. So the first instruction is think of one of the unique aspects or tradition from your culture that you're proud of or that you find it interesting. You may have many of them, but I just want particularly one. Second, the other instruction is you will share this aspect in the chat box, and I want you to briefly explain why that's significant or important or why that's meaningful to you. And I want you to be short and precise about this one. If you like to share pictures, it's up to you to share. So can I see your chat box and share me this, please? And I'd like to read some of the responses here. So any culture, I mean, the unique culture that you'd like to share with all of us. This is what we mean by culture, right? Because today we're going to talk about interculture. So there is culture and there is inter. So we're going to see that in detail later on. So can you share me maybe, and I can read some of the unique cultures or tradition or aspect you have from your culture. So something that you're really proud of it and something that you like to share with the audience here. Anyone?
Hello, everyone. Could you please mute your microphones? And you can just write your answers in the chat.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anyways, one thing that I was expecting, some responses in the chat. Okay, there it comes. I'm very much sorry if I wrongly call your names. Hospitality in my country. This is Aliu Dita. Okay, interesting. I am suburb from Somali. I'm so glad to be in important session. Okay. Hospitality is one thing. And I will be glad if you also include your country's name. Okay, respect of, this is Shu Jerome F. Respect of elders. When it comes to handshakes, you wait for the elder to extend his or her hand first. You see it? Incredible. The way they respect elders in their respective country. From Ghana, a young person does not greet the elderly while wearing a hat. Look at this. Fantastic. So if the elderly wear a hat you cannot talk to, or a young does not greet. Oh. Okay, respect of our elders. This is Tesfaye Nagash, or Dr. Tesfaye Nagash from Ethiopia. Okay. Anyways, you can see like we can have tremendous cultures that we really feel proud of. Anyways, that's going to be enough. Anyways, you can use this one as ice break session when you have this intercultural communication lesson in your classroom. So it keeps on saying hospitality. Hospitality, I think, is everywhere. And leaving seat for elders. This is a Gerida from Ethiopia. Elders, very religious. Okay. Muslim culture of breaking fast together. You see it? We have many of them. Anyways, now we have to start about, for the interest of time, I have to get into today's discussion. So as an introduction, remember one thing. The topic or the title of today's presentation is what? Understanding the value of intercultural communication in the modern classroom. I just want you to think about those terminologies. Understanding is there, and intercultural communication is there, and modern classroom is there. So we're going to look those things in depth. But now let me just continue with my presentation. So I'm going to start from the objectives of my presentation. So what are you going to get at the end of the day? Primarily, you're going to gain a comprehensive understanding of the importance of IC, or intercultural communication, in the modern classroom. That is the major objective that you're going to acquire in our today's discussion. Apart from this, through insightful discussions and practical insights, you'll also be equipped with the knowledge and skills necessary to expand a culturally inclusive learning environment. Can you just remember this point? A culturally inclusive learning environment. Fantastic. The last objective will be participants will enhance their ability to connect with diverse or different or various students, population, and effectively promote cross-cultural understanding within the educational setting. So those are the objectives. Next, I would like to start my presentation by giving you a quote, an opening quote. This quote says, you can see it, communication is at the heart of our shared humanity. So just think about communication. Communication can be defined in different ways. Different scholars, they defined it in different ways. But my objective here is just to share you this opening quote. And something that's very important, the two most important or terminologies for me is hurt, there is hurt, and then shared humanity, okay? So the quotation continues by saying, in an era where the world is more connected than ever, more connected, the word connected is another very important terminology. And the power of intercultural communication becomes what? The bridge. We know how a bridge is very important, right? So a bridge to understanding, unity, and progress. And again, I just would like to share you this relevant statistics that I have taken it from UNESCO. Do you know that in the world, there are over 7,000 languages which are spoken? Do you know that? And those languages emphasize the incredible diversity in our interconnected world. Now we know that the world is becoming one and the same, right? So for that matter, having a very good understanding about the intercultural communication is not an option, right? So let's look at this one in the modern classroom again, that I got it from UNESCO. Students represent rich complexity of cultures. And do you know that this time over 20% of students are studying outside their home country? Do you know this? So do you think that, having understanding of intercultural communication is not an option this time? So it is timely, very important that everybody need to have it. Another point, okay, we've been talking about communication, we've been talking about language and culture. How can we connect these three terminologies? Can you put your ideas in the chat box, please, how we can connect them? And I'll read a few responses from the chat box. How do we connect them? The intercultural communication. I mean, there's communication, there's language, there's culture. Can I have like some responses from you, please? Yeah, people are greeting here. And can you like put your responses? Okay, language here, Tom says language is used to communicate culture. Language is part of culture. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Okay, by interaction, this is alphabets somehow. By speaking the same language, create a context about cultural activities. Communication is the transfer of information or a message between a sender and receiver. We usually connect them by using spoken language, okay? Greeting trends in various cultures to teach self-introduction. This is ILO. Okay, anyways, language is part of culture. I agree. I can't hear. Just check your sound system, maybe audio system. They are interconnected one another. This is your Yuhune Naga. And one more thing, language is the means of communication, and culture puts some perspective in the communication process. I do agree. So let's just put those things together. So you say that communication is directly linked to what? Language. Because when we say communication, that communication is done through language. The language can be verbal or non-verbal. And that language also carries what? Cultural nuances. Cultural nuances like what? It could be greeting style, it could be time perception, it could be non-verbal cues and others as well. So by exploring culture, we can reveal the role of communication and language. So together, they shape the fabric of human cultures. That's a very important point. And let's go on to the other point. Now I'm going to take you to another paradigm. You can see the picture, right? There is a picture of an iceberg. Now we're going to talk culture in terms of metaphor. So when you look at the iceberg, you can see the iceberg above the waterline and below the waterline. So when you look at the iceberg above the waterline is way smaller than the one beneath the waterline. So my first question, just to give you some clues, the iceberg above the waterline is said to be surface culture. The one beneath the waterline is said to be deep culture. So the first question for you is, how's culture like an iceberg then? How's it an iceberg then? Can you put your response there? How's culture is linked to an iceberg? Can I have your responses in the chat box? Okay, the depth. Alphabet, Samuel, the depth. What is the question, please? The question is, how is culture like an iceberg? You can also find it from the slides, okay? There are different cultures that we need to learn, okay? Tesfaye Nagash, Dr. Tesfaye. Okay, Abdul says what? It can change. It is able to, it says it is it is able to break the iceberg. Okay. Okay, Muhammad. It is any distinctive or unique activity, phenomenon, or an institution with which all or most members of a given culture emotionally and cognitively identify, and it's like iceberg. Okay. There is more to a culture than meets the eye. Great. Culture is like an iceberg because this is Anjay, or the other one is Galila, say there is more to a culture than meets the eye. Okay, I think the last one, I think if I'm not wrongly saying this name, Angeline, culture is like an iceberg because what is visible is often limited, in comparison to what is hidden, that not too visible. Absolutely. I agree on this one. So let me just, say a little bit about this one. I just told you about this. So we have culture. The above culture or above the waterline is said to be surface culture, the culture that can easily be seen. Okay. And the elements of that culture are not a lot. When you look at, the iceberg beneath the waterline, it's very gigantic, way, way bigger than the one above the waterline. That indicates that too many components of a culture are not visible. They are invisible. For example, the values, beliefs, history, attitudes might be what? The invisible ones. But if you look at, the wearing style, the types of food, rituals, they can be easily seen. So you see it? So how culture is linked with an iceberg? Because we only look at few components of a culture. We only understand few components of a culture. But the majority of the components are like the iceberg beneath the waterline. So this is very interesting. This is how we link it. So we have to be careful about this one. We cannot judge people watching the surface culture unless we're clear about the deep culture. I have a follow-up question here. It says, okay, there it is. How do you learn about things above the waterline? How do you learn about things above the waterline? Do you think that it's going to be difficult for us to learn things about the waterline? Because above the waterline, we call that is surface what? Surface culture, or this is visible culture. That visible culture could be what? As I told you, the food or the types of food, the culture, rituals, this and that, something that we can see and judge. Do you think that's going to be difficult to learn? Or how do we learn that one? How do we learn it? Can I have your responses here maybe? Victoria, behavior. Okay, there is Violet saying by interacting with people, okay. By interacting, okay, absolutely, there you are. There is Chainire Mahadi. I'm very much sorry because this is also culture that I have to be careful about calling names. So through observation and interaction, watching, I agree on that. So look at this. Watching Nabil Muhammad from Ethiopia, Ndugu Stephen above the waterline, you can know it by their performance, activities, and even behavior. Interacting with people, Akoji, Samrat Nagash by communicating, Sheila Mare by immersing, observation. I agree on that. Because since they are observable, we can learn them by observing, by watching, because they're very simple. For example, if it is, a type of food, just you can look at it and you can learn it by observation. Okay, it doesn't need much of your energy and time. So observation is very important, and watching, and by interacting with those people, you can easily understand and learn. Okay, great. What if I ask you the other way around? What if it is like this? how do you learn about the things below the waterline? How about below the waterline? So here, culture is something visible through people, clothes, food, and also through people behavior, and they communicate. This is alama. By interacting to, okay, Fadil, can you mute yourself, please? Sion Haile Selassie, respecting, okay, great. By doing deeper, oh, there comes. This is Fatima, Abdul Karim, Abdul Hakim, and participations, Agai Nagash. Okay, Aldaba Samuel, by going deep in Nabil from Ethiopia, interaction. Okay, there, yeah. Now, one thing is that, below the waterline, those are invisible cultures. Cultures like what? Beliefs, values, attitudes, could be history, and this and that. So the question is that if you like to learn the invisible cultures, you have to dedicatedly work on that one. You may interact with the people. You may read literature works from those people. You may be even part of that culture. Unless, in other words, you cannot have a very clear understanding about the components of culture beneath the waterline. So it's very good to understand and to spend your time on that one. So this part needs energy time, okay? It's not as easy as learning the waterline, I mean, the components of culture above the waterline. Okay, interesting. I'm a little bit in a hurry for the interest of time. Another question maybe. What happens if you don't know one or some of these things? What do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? It could be like the surface culture right there. He say, I mean, Lakines, conflict, violate, it needs interest, you must be interested. Amara, conflict, Zahiwat, cultural shock, and Jie, unintentional offend others. Udo, consult to avoid chaos. And Stella, you end up messing up things. No question. No question. The point is you have said lack of awareness about certain cultural elements can lead to misunderstandings, misinterpretations, which may lead us to potential conflicts. Potential conflicts. So we have to be careful. And this may result in effective what? Communication. So we have to be careful about considering those elements of any culture, a certain culture. Okay? Okay. Question number 5, which things are easier to change? I'm not going to give you the chance for this one. The surface culture, the culture above the waterline is very easy to change, right? Which one is difficult to change? The other way around, okay? The invisible cultures are very difficult to easily change them. The visible cultures are very easy to change them. The last question maybe here. Why is it important to understand that there are visible and invisible types of culture? Why is that important? Why is it important? Communication patterns, Udo. Why is it important to know about, to understand about there are visible and invisible? Okay, why is that important? Sion, communication, Malaku, to communicate easily and form good relationship, okay? Alaman, there is a total confusion about people, deeper life, and their superficial one, as Ahiwat, for better communication and interaction. Okay, great. Amara, to have mutual understanding, great. I think that's Dr. Amara. Alphabet, to understand things or person, absolutely. Ayala, to understand that we cannot excessively understand other cultures. Okay, great. So recognizing the existence of both visible, or we call it surface, and invisible, deep types of culture is crucial for fostering effective cross-cultural interaction. It also helps individuals appreciate the complexity of cultural dynamics, promoting empathy and understanding as well. So it's very much good to know about to understand both the visible and invisible types of cultures. Okay. So what is next step?
L'interculturalité là,
Can you mute yourself, please? Now let's just revise it. Now we're going to bring it to one board. So here the cultural iceberg, it says, as you can see, we have the cultural iceberg. This is represented as, the iceberg that we saw earlier. So you can see the language, the folklore, dress, fine arts, holiday, festivals, literature, food are considered to be the surface cultural components, and the one below are considered to be invisible or deep cultural elements or components. But I want you to understand this. Do not only look at from the perspective of your culture. For instance, if you look at family roles, in most African countries, you may say that this is very easy. Why do we include this one, for deep culture? You never know all the cultures we have in the world. For example, if you come to Ethiopia, we have these people in the northern part of the country where the husband is the household or takes care of the household staff, and the woman can do both. So we even have it here in Ethiopia. So you cannot be sure. So generally speaking, here we have visible versus invisible invisible cultures. So the visible ones can be language, race, food, and others. The invisible ones could be family roles, beliefs, assumptions, work ethics, and so on. Okay, so what is culture? So what is culture? Is that as easy as the way we define it? No way. So culture is much more than what? It is more than food, sports, and art, right? So this is what we need to understand. So whenever we think about culture, we have to think about how it is characterized by or to, right? So I think, how can I see this? Okay, let me. And culture is more than food, sports, and art. Culture is a system of shared values, beliefs, and attitudes that are learned by a group of people who primarily work and socialize together. This definition is given by Johnson, Anderson, and Thompson, 2015. You can find it. So culture is like this. Okay. Now, can I have a question for you? Have you experienced situations where cultural differences have influenced the teaching or learning situation? That could be positively or that could be negatively. So can I have some pointers? Have you experienced this? Yes. Alphabet, yeah. Marcia, yes. Moses. Alphabet, negative. Okay. Sion Haile Selassie, yes. Ayala, yes. Ether, yes. Sandra, yes, yes, yes. Nagash, that's fine. Oh, too many yeses anyways. Another question then. Okay. So if that happens, how do you currently incorporate cultural diversity in your teaching methods? And what successes or challenges have you encountered? I am teaching and okay. Yes, I do have. Okay, let's change now the question. Okay, there is Kubrat by learning new culture and accept by learning new culture. Okay, and Fatima, acceptance. How do you currently incorporate? Okay, how do you currently incorporate cultural diversity, cultural difference into your teaching methods, and what successes or challenges have you encountered? Knowing the students' culture and accept it.
Hi, Yoseph. You seem to have gone quiet. Can you unmute yourself?
Mr. Yosef, I think you are muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Yoseph. Can you unmute yourself? And other people, make sure they're muted because it interferes with the talk. Yoseph, you're muted at the moment.
Can't hear you, Mr. Joseph. Please, can you unmute
There
yourself?
I am. Now you can hear, right?
Yeah, we can hear again. Can other people mute themselves, please?
People, can you please mute yourself? You're distracting a lot. Please. Okay, so let's continue. Now let's just look at culture versus interculture. Now we understand what a culture is, right? Now, very clear, crystal clear. So now we understand that culture is refers to characteristics of a specific group. How about interculture? There is inter plus culture, interculture. So inter means what? Among. So interculture or intercultural means to interact between different cultures, okay? To interact between different cultures. So interculture focuses on what? The dynamic interplay and communication that happens when groups or individuals from different cultures come together. So in that case, we say interculture. So interculture means what? The communication between people from different cultures. Now let's define what intercultural communication is meant then. So according to those scholars, you can see Samovar and Porter 2001, they define intercultural communication as a communication between people whose cultural perceptions and symbol systems are different enough to change or alter the communication event. The other scholars from their book written in 1997, they define intercultural communication as the communication between people from two different cultures. That's it. So what is intercultural communication? Is a communication between people from different cultures. Different cultures. So that's very interesting. Now let's just take a look at this activity. I'm going to share you various activities about how whenever you use intercultural lesson in your classroom. So maybe in the meantime, I will share you around 10 of the activities that you can use in your ELT classroom. So this is something as an example that you can use it in your classroom. This is said cross-cultural dialogues. So it says, for instance, let's take a look at the instruction. Pair participants from different cultural backgrounds. This could be done online or via WhatsApp, Telegram, this and that, and provide them with discussion prompts. Here I have the discussion prompts. You can see it at the right side of you. I have created the cultural traditions, values, and beliefs, language and communication, perception of time as well. So it depends on, you may just adapt these pointers into your activity. And the second point says, encourage open and respectful dialogue about cultural experiences, beliefs, and values. The discussion should be open, but at the same time, respectful. Dignity is very important in letting students, participate in this activity. For example, for cultural traditions, I have the details for values and beliefs. I have the details, language and communication. I have the details, perceptions of time. I have the details. For instance, let's just take a look at the third one. I can present this prompt like this to my students. You told them that to discuss the cultural attitudes toward this time. So you ask a question. Is punctuality highly valued in your culture, or is there a more relaxed approach? So this will let you know, the culture of the counterpart. For instance, I can share you my experience in this regard about perception of time. 7-8 years ago, I was working in an international school where a majority of the teachers were outside of the country. So I had this experience. For instance, when we had, appointment for 10 a.m., for instance, I used to be a little bit reluctant because being there at 10:10 or 10:05 was a relaxed approach for me. But for the people who are outside of Ethiopia was shocking. So because if it is 10 a.m., so we have to start on the specified time, exactly 10 a.m. So now I started learning because they call this is Habasha, Habasha. So they connected that culture with Habasha. And I started being on time, and later on, I started being even in time. You understand what we mean by in time and on time, right? So this is very important. Okay, so we've been talking about intercultural communication, and we also have intercultural learning. So intercultural learning versus intercultural communication. I'm not going to repeat about intercultural communication, but if I have to remember, you can say the communication between two different cultures. That's it. How about intercultural learning? This is about acquiring of knowledge. This is particularly important if you're not clear about the culture that you are interacting. Be careful about this. So because we say that, if you remember earlier, the invisible cultures, they need time, energy, and you have to learn about those invisible components of a culture, like beliefs, history, values, attitudes, and others, right? So this is very important. You need to have, you need to increase your ability of learning other cultures, okay? So intercultural learning means what? Learning or acquiring knowledge about other cultures, understanding and appreciating cultural diversity. That's it. Another point here is a question, and I want you to drop your responses in the chat box now. Why important to understand intercultural communication in the modern classroom? Understanding intercultural communication, and then another very good terminologies, modern classroom. So can you put your answers in the chat box, please? Why should we understand? What is the purpose of understanding the intercultural communication and the modern classroom? Okay, Daniel Truna, to know about students, I think, and help them better, okay? Another, Dr. Manasseh, I'm sorry, enhance learning, okay? Eskinder Getachew, having the seminar slides is very important for its implementation. James, to yield full participation. Groom, to carry out communication so that we can deliver, okay? Azion, for better, to know better, okay? Dr. Amara, to treat students equally, great. Alphabet, for better communication, okay? Maximo, to understand better their needs, great. Dr. Tesfaye, to develop tolerance for ambiguity, absolutely. To facilitate and encourage, great, everybody, thank you. Too many comments here. I wish I could read all of them, but I think time is always an enemy. So I just would like to rewind them and put them as in the form of, in a form of bulletin. So the first thing could be, the first importance could be cultural diversity. So what do we mean by that? Cultural diversity. So this means, it's like acknowledging or respecting the cultural differences present among students and educators. So if you know about the cultural diversity there, so you acknowledge, you understand, you respect. That's why it's good to know about cultural understanding. The other one is you'll be able to effectively communicate amongst those students. So communication will not be a hindrance for you. Since you understand what intercultural communication is meant, so you'll be able to easily communicate with the people very effectively. This is another importance. Third, enhance the learning, it says. This is all about recognizing that a culturally inclusive, if you remember, I told you this earlier. I just told you to underline on this one. A culturally inclusive classroom fosters a more enriching and dynamic learning environment. This is another very important part of understanding intercultural communication in the modern classroom. Another point, global competence. So you'll be able to create a student who can globally compete, because people are moving all around. Students are moving all around. You remember the statistics I showed you, because 20% of the students are not learning in their home country. So you'll be able to create a citizen who can globally compete, right? And this is going to be an advantage for your students as well. On conflict resolution, because conflict is uncertain. It can happen anytime, any place, because the interaction is between people from different cultural backgrounds. So to what extent your student or students will be able to tackle if any sort of conflict arises. So they will be able to do that one. So they will have a skill, they will develop a skill of what? Resolving conflict. The last point, cultural sensitivity. This is about encouraging educators or students to be mindful of what? Cultural sensitivity and nuances in their teaching methods. Interesting. So those are some of the major pointers that we need to incorporate in our day-to-day teaching process, teaching and learning process, so that we can create good citizens, well-equipped sort of students for the world market, okay? Okay, another question here. What are some of the crucial skills for effective intercultural communication? What are they? So I would like to hear from you, okay? I would like to hear from you. What are some of the crucial, can I have like quite a few people for this one? So what are the skills for effective intercultural communication? Oh, great. I need to, okay. Sorry. Tolerance, great. Daniel, empathy. And Mabo, empathy, absolutely. I can't hear, okay, just check your sound. Oh, thank you, Dr. Gari. Oh, good listening skills, absolutely. This is Hari. Fatima, listening. Esther, attentiveness. Balacho, active listening. Dennis, tolerance. Oh, great. Well, there you are. And there is Dr. Manasseh, acceptability. In Phoenix, smart, respecting, and active listening. And there is Nugugu, kindness. Okeke, good listening. Daniel, exhibiting friendliness. Doso, curiosity. Esther, self-aware. Oh, great. Thank you very much, everybody. So now let me put them like in chronological order. First one, understanding of other culture. Understanding of other culture. For no doubt, this is very important. This is the skill that every single student or teacher should incorporate in themselves, should add to their value, okay? So having a good knowledge of like the values, beliefs, ideology of other culture allows adequate attributions of the behavior of its members. So this is something very important. Now, this has been said by quite a number of people. This is very interesting. This is actually one of the most relevant elements of effectiveness in communication in general. This is all about Empathy means all about the ability to recognize differences. If you recognize differences, then that's a very good skill. That makes you an effective communicator then. Another point, tolerance of ambiguity. Yeah, this also mentioned, I think, earlier by Dr. Tesfa. Tolerance of ambiguity. This is another very important thing. What it is? This is also the ability to cope with complexity, unclear, and uncertain situations that may arise in intercultural communication. So you need to be tolerant enough to avoid those kind of problems, which come from uncertainty, which come from complexity, which come from uncertain situations. Okay, another point. Cognitive flexibility. This is like being able to accommodate easily to the circumstances or opinions of other. Being able to accommodate opinions of other. Not rejecting, you see? That's another quality. Okay, next. Delay of evaluation of the behavior of others. This is about the ability not to evaluate in advance. Don't prejudge people, okay? Because that also may lead you to conflict. This is all about respect for cultural differences. You have to respect the cultural differences you have. Whether you believe the components of the culture that a certain person has could be convincible for you or not, it's up to the person, but you should be able to respect that one. Problem-solving skills, that conflicts are uncertain. So if any sort of conflict comes, using your skills, you'll be able to solve, right? Because there will be misunderstanding, misinterpretation by the opponent party. So you have to be careful about this. And the last one is about relationship building skills. And this is another very important thing. So when you decide about things, you have to look at it from the other perspective, not from your perspective, okay? You have to think if the decision you're going to make can affect others, you are not going to learn later on once that happens to the people. So make sure that before you decide about something else, you just increase your relationship skill within the people with different cultures. Okay, another question. Have you experienced intercultural communication episodes which are funny, strange, annoying, shocking, and so on? What did you think in the situation? How did you react in the situation? How do you think about the situation and its consequences? And let me have another question again. How can we, as teachers, ensure that multicultural diversity becomes an advantage rather than a disadvantage? Can I have like 2-3 responses for this one, maybe? 2-3 responses. I'm about to finish. I think I need to finish by then. So let me have like, if I'm allowed. Okay. Can I have like some? Okay. Okay. Being amiable, alphabet, by accommodating others. Okay. What else? So I think we can strengthen those questions on our Friday's discussion session. You remember Dr. Gary told you about this one. So I think we'll be able to strengthen this one on our Friday's discussion. Great. And I need to go forward. So activities for ELT classes to develop intercultural understanding. I just told you about this one earlier again. So these are the activities that you can incorporate in your classroom, particularly when you like to teach intercultural communication. I've got here 10 of them, so you can use this. So we can share you this one again. Here are 10 activities. I use the one that at the bottom, cross-cultural dialogues. So that's it. So what are the do's of intercultural communication? I need to be in a hurry. I'm not going to give you the chance for this one. The first thing is avoid assumptions or jokes. Do not assume about others' culture. Please do not make fun of other cultures as well, because that will again lead you to potential conflict. So no assumption, make sure that you know about the culture. Do not make any sort of joke, even if that is funny for you. Something that is funny for you might be serious for the other person. So we have to be careful about this one. Another thing that we have to do, use symbols, diagrams, and pictures. This is very interesting, especially if there is, communication barriers. This is very interesting. Another, avoid using slang and idioms. This is also another. You have to use, depend on like the denotative meaning. Don't get into the connotative meaning, because that also will lead you to the potential conflict. Because people may not understand you if you depend on the connotative meaning. Be clear and use simple language when you communicate. And the other one is about investigate their culture's perception. You have to know what perception they do have about their cultures. Okay? Make sure that they may have cultures that they may not like it or they may like it. But unless you're sure about that, do not do anything. You have to investigate. Okay? Sorry, a bit in a hurry. Take cultural and local differences into account, absolutely. And say what you do and do what you say. Use simple language, use understandable language when you interact. Don't do during intercultural communication. One, using the same approach worldwide. No, because if you're a globally competent citizen, you can't do this. Because everywhere you go, you act on behalf of the culture of that country or that culture. Considering traditional knowledge and practices as backward. Now we have to be careful, because the tradition you think or the knowledge you think is a sign of backwardness for you might be an important for that person. So this still will lead you to potential conflict. So do not consider any culture as backwardness. Letting cultural differences become a source of conflict. Please do not let that. And failing to ignore cultural dependent, enabling and counter acting forces and
Why don't you
failing
read
to
another
fake language. Yeah. So here are the questions, finally.
Why don't you read my response?
Pardon? Okay.
Yes, why you don't read?
So these questions.
Why don't you read my response?
This question, I'm sorry, now we don't have time. So I'm about to wrap up. So there are like 3 more questions that we're going to maybe answer in our discussion on Friday. So I want you to take these questions into account, and we'll be working on those questions. I think I need to give time for Steve and Gary. So here are the references that you can use.
So it
if
is
you'd like
better
to know more
take
about.
more time, yes?
So here I am. Boom. This is a title which needs more time, because that's obvious. So back to Dr. Gary and Steve.
Yeah, we still have about 5 minutes. So
Can I continue that?
Yeah, you could continue for another 5 minutes. Yeah. So the
Okay,
person interrupting, can I
That's
just
good.
say,
You are giving us a good lesson. That's
so Dinias, please do not keep interrupting. Can you put your question into the chat, and we'll try and deal with it. Otherwise, you can join us next Friday at the discussion that we have on as a regular Friday discussion. So
Dr. Gary, can we entertain questions from the participants, or can I ask my question then?
I'm trying not to do that because I know you've still got stuff to do. What is it? What is your question, Dinias, so that we can deal with that?
You mean my question?
Dinias, what's your question that you want answering?
just my question is just how many iconic items are there in terms of culture of language? I want to know the basic elements of cultural language. This is my question.
No, thank you. Can you make it specific, like when you say iconic, icon? What do you mean by that?
Just elements, just special elements.
Yeah, earlier I just mentioned some of
Just-
the elements
Just the
of
point
culture.
that I have to keep in my mind. Yes,
Okay.
yes, the
Yeah,
basic
but
elements.
were you from the beginning of this
Just,
presentation? Were you
yes, I'm
from the
with you.
beginning of? Were you from the previous presentation of this session?
Yes, I'm with you, dear.
Because I mentioned some of the elements of a culture, too many elements, of course. And I just mention the major elements of any culture, like the food, the clothing, the values, attitudes, history, beliefs, and others as well. But we have too many of them. But the majority, you can consider the values, beliefs, history, food, language might be the crucial ones, but we can also have more on that.
Okay, so I think he's taken up your time there. Do you want to just show the final questions, and we can sort of deal with those questions in the discussion next week. So if we put those questions up, as Steve will be putting those questions up anyway. So if people want to join the discussion group, the Telegram discussion group, you can continue doing this discussion now, or you can come and join us sort of formally next Friday at 1700 GMT, and we'll carry on what is a fascinating topic and lots to think about and go at, including all of the different tasks that we didn't have time to have a look at. So they will be on the Telegram group. So Steve will has summarized all of the presentation on the Telegram discussion group, so you can look at that if you want and interact with it. There will be a recording and slides distributed next week. When you registered, obviously you'll then get emails which will tell you about certificates. You'll have to give some feedback, and then later next week or early next week, again, there will be another email which will give you access to both the recording and the slides, and you can follow up in detail if you have